For the longest time, the toughest part of VGC wasn't figuring out your 6 Pokemon or clicking the right moves, it was getting your Pokemon on cartridge. Between RNG abuse, soft resetting, or attending obscure Japanese events, building a team was a long and arduous process. This is no longer the case. In Sword and Shield, almost any random Pokemon can be turned into a competitive behemoth. In this series, we aim to prove just that. Every week, we'll get 3 Pokemon from Wonder Trade. We'll put together a team from just our Wonder Traded Pokemon and take on the Battle Stadium ladder and online tournaments with the eventual goal of top cutting a VGC Regional Championship. Welcome to Wonder Trade Topping. Hello everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Wonder Trade Topping. My name is Adi, and I'm really excited for this series. At this point in Series 9, it's got a little bit stale, despite being in the middle of Players Cup 4, a lot of my friends and team building partners are really tired of this format. I've also been looking for something to switch it up a little bit, and so this should be a fun way of doing it. And to make this have real stakes, if this video gets 500 likes, I will bring a team of only Wonder Traded Pokemon to either Players Cup 5 or the first regional of the year, whichever one comes first. So make sure to hit that like button and subscribe while you're at it. To give you a quick rundown of the rules, every week we will Wonder Trade for 3 Pokemon. Since this is the first episode and not every Pokemon we Wonder Trade for is actually battle legal, we're going to trade for 9 Pokemon to start out. And then we're going to play 5 games of Battle Spot in each episode. Once we get to Master Ball rank, we might start playing in online tournaments instead. And the reality is, legendary Pokemon are basically required to play in VGC nowadays, and we're probably unlikely to get them from Wonder Trade. So instead, every 5 games that we win, we'll get a chance to catch a random legendary either from the overworld or from Dynamax Adventures, and I'll explain a little bit more about how we'll do that after we get our 5th win, so hopefully next episode. But let's kick things off with the fun part. Let's get Wonder Trading. So I don't know about you guys, but when I started out playing competitively on cartridge back in Generation 6, I would do a lot of breeding and then Wonder Trade away all my Breedjects, and then I would just get more Breedjects in return and go and breed all of those Pokemon into competitive Pokemon as well. So I'm really excited for this. This is very nostalgic for me, and I'm hoping that we get some good Breedjects along the way, and let's get right into it. So opening up the first Pokemon, it looks like we are going to get we got a Grookey, and because any Pokemon can have its hidden ability, even if this isn't a Grassy Surge Grookey, we're going to get it. We're going to be able to have a Grassy Surge Rillaboom right off the bat. That is absolutely insane. What a crazy start. I mean, that's just a VGC staple. We're just always going to have this Pokemon, and that's just going to be really good. I'm really excited. I could not ask for a better way to start this out. And moving on to the next Pokemon, it looks like we're going to get a Galarian Farfetch'd. Okay, so this is going to turn into a Surfetch'd. This is actually like low-key really good. Surfetch'd is a really good attack stat. It gets to critical hit. It gets to ignore Intimidate because of Scrappy. And fighting plus flying coverage is really good for a max Pokemon. So this is actually going to be put to a lot of good use. In VGC, normally the 2 fighting types you're going to see are Urshifu and Terrakion. But because we have because we don't really get to access these legendaries very consistently, having a different fighting type to use is going to be really, really valuable. So yeah, this is a fantastic start. Farfetch'd obviously might get phased out eventually, but I'm hoping that it's going to be a powerful team, even just off the first episode, right off the bat. And our third Pokemon is Pidgey. Okay. I don't even think I don't know if this is in the game or not. I haven't ever seen a Pidgeot on ladder, and I feel like I've laddered a lot. So this might straight up not be in the game. And we're certainly not going to use it unless we just have a better flying type abuser. So yeah, let's move on to the next set of 3. Okay, and so moving on to our next set of 3, I am doing these a little separately because you can only trade 3 Pokemon at a time. But let's see what we get. Okay, and it is a Sobble. So that's I guess people just really like trading starters. That might be it. Like, I guess it's for like challenge runs, or people really like breeding their starters and getting perfect versions of those. But this is really good for us because it's a really good water type. Now, it's not as good as some of the other water types that people normally use in VGC, namely like Rapid Strike Urshifu or like Suicune or Tapu Fini, but those are all legendary Pokemon, and we're probably not going to have access to those. Inteleon is maybe the next best thing. It's really fast. It has speed control with Icy Wind, And it is, I think that Raghav used this back in Players Cup 1 with Soak and then Rillaboom to do a lot of damage. So we have that really powerful combination right off the bat. And so that might be really good. It's just like Fire, Water, Grass is one of the most powerful combinations. And to have that early on, at least the two parts of it, we'll see if we get a Fire type. That's going to be a really good start for us. And so the second Pokemon of the batch, the fifth Pokemon overall, is going to be... This is insane. This is okay. So we got a Swinub, which turns into a Mamoswine. Mamoswine is just a good Pokemon in VGC. You see it like nowadays too. It has a Oblivious ability, which makes it immune to Intimidate, and then Ice Ground coverage is really powerful. We have it on our XTL team if you're watching that, and it's put in work there too. So this is a really great start. It's going to do a lot of damage. It's going to be a great max target or just a cleanup Pokemon with its priority Ice Shard. It can proc weakness policies. Yeah, this is just going to do a lot for us, and is again probably going to be a Pokemon that we're going to phase in and out of the lineup even towards the end of our, like as our team starts to get finalized for next Players Cup. This is a Pokemon that we genuinely could bring to Players Cup 5 or a regional without feeling bad about ourselves at all. And so the sixth Pokemon that we're going to get is an Aeron. Okay. So this evolves into Aggron. Aggron is not very good. Now, granted, Steel types are probably really valuable. Galekid, that's a kind of cool nickname. Steel types are probably really valuable in general, and it's going to be hard to find good ones. Like the main one that isn't a legendary in VGC is Metagross, I think. But just having Steel type coverage is probably valuable. Like, obviously, there's no reason to use this over like a Stack Attacka, but again, we don't have access to Stack Attacka, or probably we may never will. But it's just not a very good Pokemon. Like, I don't know. It's like Rock Head, I think. It can fire off some powerful head smashes. Just the multiple 4x weaknesses and the weakness to water is going to make it really hard to use, as well as the, like, bad special defense stat. So hopefully we get something. Hopefully we don't have to roll up with this this week or, in the next couple weeks at the very least. But yeah, that's the second batch of 3, and then we'll move on to the third batch. All right, so getting right into it, we are going to see that our third batch... Okay, got an Onix to start off as the 7th Pokemon, evolved into Steelix, of course, and that might be a little more viable. It's still, like, not the best Pokemon. I think it's better than Aggron, just because it doesn't have those 4x weaknesses. It has Sheer Force as an ability, which lets it do a lot of damage. Again, I don't know if you guys are watching XTL, but Bryce Manby beat Fevzi with a Steelix, and that really opened my eyes to the power of Steelix with, like, a weakness policy. But even we don't necessarily need to use a weakness policy. It can probably do enough damage. Just like, again, ground coverage is really good. Steel coverage is really good. It's like a miniature Excadrill. If we don't ever get access to Excadrill, this might be something of a replacement on like a Trick Room team maybe. Not a bad Pokemon to start out. Probably going to be in our week 1 lineup, given that we can't use one of our Pokemon. And we might not be able to use 2 of our Pokemon, because as you see, number 8 is another Grookey. So unless we're using like the Wacky, we aren't going to be able to use 2 Rillabooms. So yeah, I guess sometimes it's going to happen. And moving right on to the last Pokemon that we're going to get, it is a Jigglypuff. Okay, probably not. Okay, I mean, I keep saying I don't want to use any of these, like this Pokemon ever, but that's the whole point of the series, right? Is to use these weird Pokemon, especially early on. We're going to have to use some strange Pokemon, but like, I've thought about Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff, in theory, is really cool. It gets competitive to boost its special attack and deter Intimidate. It gets a lot of supportive moves, but the reality is it just isn't actually that bulky despite its really high HP stat, and it isn't actually that powerful even at +2. It just doesn't do that much damage. We might have to use it. Like, again, we're kind of limited to basically 7 Pokemon, and we get to drop one of them because we have two Grookeys and a Pidgey, which I don't think is in the game. But let's look over the Pokemon that we actually got, and we'll see. Okay, so here are the Pokemon that we got. We do see the Jigglypuff. I guess it's a okay, it's from Pokemon Go. I wonder if so I know the Pokemon from the Red and Blue games on the 3DS are locked into the hidden ability. I don't know if that's true of Pokemon from Let's Go. I don't know if competitive is the hidden ability or not for Jigglypuff. I guess we'll find out when I put these teams together. But yeah, that's definitely a Pokemon. And then we do see that the next Pokemon is going to be the Grookey. Of course, we have 2 of these, but Grassy Surge is going to be really good. It is worth noting that we cannot go from a hidden ability to a non-hidden ability, but we can go from any ability to a hidden ability, and we can also switch abilities that aren't hidden abilities. But Rillaboom obviously always going to have its hidden ability. And then we see the Steelix. Again, not sure what the hidden ability is, but I think Sturdy is the normal ability. And it is a quiet nature, so maybe it has a low speed stat. We probably want it to be min speed for Trick Room shenanigans. I'm not really sure off the top of my head. And then moving on, we see the Aeron. I don't know again. Rockhead. Rockhead's probably the ability we want anyways if we're using Aggron just to do as much damage as possible. But this is maybe not. I wonder if the French name is actually just Gale Kid. That's kind of a cool name. And then we see the Swinub. Swinub is going to be really good. I think that, I don't know again. I don't know the abilities off the top of my head. But if we can get it with a Oblivious ability, that's going to be really powerful. Going to be used for the rest of the series. I guarantee it. It's just such a good Pokemon in general in VGC. I'm really excited to have this in our arsenal. And then we see the Sobble. Sobble is also going to be potentially very good. It is a modest nature. Actually, it looks like it might have been a reject as well. But sadly, I think Sniper is the hidden ability, so we're not going to be able to switch it over to Torrent, which is actually the better ability in VGC because you almost always run a Focus Sash, and so it does get into Torrent range relatively early. But still, nonetheless, pretty solid water type. And if we get another Sobble, which doesn't seem unreasonable, then maybe we can switch. Maybe that one will have Torrent. And then Pidgey, we do see its ability is empty, so it might just not have. I just think it's not in the game. I think that's what that means. It does look like it is from Let's Go EV. So I guess we can't use Pidgeot, whatever. Not those Pokemon use anyway. And then we last but not least, we see the Farfetch'd, which is like Farfetch'd is going to be, Surfetch'd especially is going to be really good. Adamant nature already, so it's going to be a little easier to train. I think it's normally Adamant, maybe Jolly. But just a really powerful Pokemon with a good attack stat, good fighting coverage. Going to be really useful. And then we see the Grookey again, and that's it. Yeah, that's our last Pokemon. So those are the Pokemon that we got for week 1. I'm going to put these in a builder, try to figure out exactly how I want to train them, and put together a team for week 1. This is a really good start. We got some really solid, like, staple Pokemon that are going to be used for a while, that are going to be hard to power creep without getting like access to very powerful legendaries. So this is I'm excited for this. This is a really good start, and it's going to be interesting to see which one we drop, because we only have like 7 Pokemon to start out for our week 1 team. But I'm sure that hopefully will be enough to get us out of like Pokeball rank right off the bat. Okay, we are back, and here's what I ended up putting together for this week. We are going to be using a lot of the Pokemon we expected to be using. Rillaboom is obviously going to be the centerpiece of our team. We're going to have a Soak Inteleon, like I mentioned when I was getting the Pokemon. That was what Raghav used in Players Cup. It's going to be it's going to allow Rillaboom to really try to power through opposing teams. And Inteleon also can do a lot of damage with Hydro Pump. Obviously, it is the Sniper ability. We cannot use Torrents because it was traded to us with Sniper. And Icy Wind is going to be some valuable speed control. Maybe Rillaboom is supposed to be a little bit faster to outspeed things after an Icy Wind, but we'll see if I regret that a little later, and we can always add some speed DVs a little later as well. But Rillaboom doesn't have any coverage moves, because I think the other Pokemon have the coverage moves that it can use a little better. Like the 2 main coverage moves that Rillaboom gets are High Horsepower and Knockoff. And we do see that our Surfetch'd is going to be running Knockoff, and we have 2 ground types on the team, so I'm not too worried about that. Soak is going to let us spam those grass moves regardless. So the Inteleon is pretty straightforward. Got the 3 moves that we really wanted. I don't think it's going to need like an Ice Beam or a Blizzard type move, because I don't think it's going to Dynamax that often. I think we're aiming to max the Rillaboom and the Mamoswine and the Surfetch'd as much as possible. And so we see the Mamoswine, once again, pretty standard set. Maybe there is an argument for rock coverage, but I think that ice coverage is going to do a lot of the same things, and we need that priority move with Ice Shard. I guess we have Rillaboom Grassy Glide, of course, but that's the only other priority move that we have. These seem like a pretty standard set for Mamoswine. It does get the Life Orb because Inteleon needs the Focus Sash. It's just way frailer. The Life Orb does more if we Dynamax the Mamoswine, and even though in VGC normally Mamoswine carries a Focus Sash, in this context, I don't think we have the flexibility to do so. And so the next Pokemon is the Surfetch'd. This is the other Pokemon that we want to Dynamax along with the Mamoswine and Rillaboom. Also pretty competent if it doesn't Dynamax, but it does have great max moves in Max Airstream and Max Knuckle. Max Darkness maybe even with our Inteleon could be really valuable. But and so it does need to be Jolly. It does need to be a little faster. It just does not hit speed stats. It doesn't outspeed anything at +1 speed if it's Adamant natured. But it does crit half the time. That's crazy. It's like a miniature crit kiss, which is really good. especially, I mean, it doesn't help that much because it can't be intimidated, but it can be stat dropped in other ways. And also, you just get to hit ghost types. You get to hit ghost type with your fighting moves because of Scrappy, and that's also really cool. It lets you click those moves really safely. The Steelix, I think, is a cool set because it has that Grassy Seed. We've seen Grassy Seed stack Attacka, for example, with Body Press, and this does a lot of the same things. Taunt is really valuable because I don't think we can play that well in Trick Room, and so it's just it's a way to stop these Trick Room setups. Body Press is obviously really good once you get to, I think it has a base 200 defense stat, and it gets to +1 really easily because we're always bringing Rillaboom, and then it's doing so much damage, and if we need to do more damage, we have that Iron Defense, and then it also just has Protect because it kind of needs to not immediately die to a lot of special attacks. Lastly, we have a Jigglypuff. I thought about this last slot. Like, the first 5 slots were really easy. The last slot was the tough one. And I thought about Thwackey in that slot just to make sure that we have grassy terrain, but it's not very good. I thought about Wigglytuff in that slot. And honestly, Wigglytuff's just so bad. It's just not worth using. But I was thinking about what Pokemon do we lose to? And the things that came to mind were Spectrier will run through this team 100%. No way of stopping it. And Torkoal will run through this team. And we have very few ways of stopping that other than, like, living a hit with our Focus Sash, Inteleon, and Hydro Pumping back, which is not realistic because they always have residual damage or Pokemon next to it or whatnot. And so I thought about Jigglypuff, which Jigglypuff actually has the ability Friend Guard. Now, this is the hidden ability, and so once it's switched to a hidden ability, it cannot switch back, so we are never going to be able to use competitive Wigglytuff. I don't care. It is not a good Pokemon. If we ever are in a situation where we feel like we need to use competitive Wigglytuff, we are better off defaulting back to this team. And so Friend Guard is going to help us live some of these powerful attacks from, like, Spectrier, potentially, from Torkoal, potentially. And Ally Switch is going to be a pain in the side for anything that wants to try to click those really powerful ghost moves into our team. And that's kind of what this is for. And then also Helping Hand, generally good Pokemon. Sing, same idea as, like, Friend Guard Clefairy, where your opponent doesn't want to target it because it doesn't do anything. But if they don't target it and your Pokemon go to sleep 60% of the time, especially if we protect with its partner, that's going to be really valuable. And then lastly, Parry Song is because I don't know what we see, but Chansey is a real Pokemon, and this lets us 1v1 the Chanseys. It lets us, like, pseudo haze Pokemon that might get stat boosts in front of us because we only have one Pokemon on the field. But its EV spread, and it doesn't have Protect, so Parry Song is a little worse. But the EV spread makes it hit 201 HP, I believe, which means that if Chansey, if we Parry Song Chansey and its Seismic Toss is 4 times, we will not go down. So that's, like, maybe our end game against Chansey teams. Yeah, actually, like, when I was game planning for Torkoal in my head, I was like, oh, and this is min speed. We will underspeed Torkoal and we will get to sing it. And then I looked at the speed IV in game and it was 18, so we actually don't. But we do underspeed Snorlax and Glastrier and all the other base 30 speed Pokemon. So it might come in handy against Trick Room teams anyways. So yeah, this is the team that we're using. It should be a lot of fun. I don't expect to win. We are in beginner rank right now, so, like, maybe we will win all 5 games. But it definitely has some flaws, but, you know, that's the whole point. And for a week 1 team, this is about as good. This is way better than I could have expected. Like, imagine if we didn't have Rillaboom. This team would be awful. But instead, we just have one of the best Pokemon in VGC on our side right away. So I'm really optimistic. So I'm going to go play some games, and I'm looking forward to how they turn out. And so here we go. We are starting off at the beginner tier. As you can see, I have played 0 games with this team. Now, one thing that I do want to do in this series is get a substantial number of games in with each edition of this team, just to be able to showcase all the Pokemon that we might bring, and might only bring for 1 week, but also because I want to get a feel for the team, and that isn't really feasible if I'm live commentating the games, because that would just take a long time. I've complained about this before. I think that Pokemon takes way too long to view effectively, even though when you're playing you do need all of that time. And so instead, I've kind of recorded it in this condensed fashion. So I hope you guys appreciate this format and let me know what you guys think. And so the first game, of course, and maybe the first couple games, we're going to be facing these in-game teams. This is beginner tier, and we do see them lead with a Frostlass and a Abomasnow. So a Hail lead into our Inteleon and Sirfetch'd. Against weaker teams, normally you want to get the game done with as quickly as possible, not give them a chance to set up their linear but convoluted game plan is often how I would describe beginner teams. And so instead I go for an Icy Wind right away to make it so Sirfetch'd outspeeds everything. Off the top of my head, I did not know if Sirfetch'd outsped Frostlass because I don't know Frostlass's speed tier off the top of my head. And so I also went for a max airstream into the Abomasnow to guarantee that even if the Frostlass got to move, we would still move before the Abomasnow, and we would also be able to move before the Frostlass on the following turn. Now, I think in hindsight, I do think that we actually outspeed. I believe Frostlass is base 110 speed, and we are EV to outspeed Thunderous, I want to say, at +1, which is 111 or 112. And so we do end up in an okay spot, and the Frost Breath does very little to the Surfetched. And so they bring in the Gastrodon, and we switch out into Rillaboom. Gastrodon sort of invalidates the Inteleon. Clicking Icy Wind isn't very valuable anymore, and the Rillaboom obviously puts out immediate pressure, especially since we outspeed the Frostlass, so we do threaten the knockout on it right away. But they do choose to Dynamax the Gastrodon, and that's not really that scary now that we do have a Rillaboom on the field that is going to immediately threaten it. However, that being said, I do misplay here. I go for a max darkness into the Frostlass, and I totally forget that we have the ability Scrappy, so we can hit ghost types with fighting type attacks, and a fighting type attack would have been super effective into this Frostlass. Instead, I see the super effective button, I see dark into ghost, and I immediately click it, but Knuckle would have been really cool to not only KO this Frostlass, but also give both of our Pokemon a boost. Regardless, we do take the KO, and they go for a Rockfall into the Surfetch'd, so I think that they thought that Surfetch'd was a flying type, much like its Cantonian form in Farfetch'd, but they did see Click Frost Breath into a turn 1 and didn't see their super effective move, but maybe that's what we get for being in beginner rank. And so we do click a Max Darkness into the Meowstic. That one is actually super effective, and we didn't have a great alternative. We knock it out with the Max Darkness, and then our Rillaboom goes for a Wood Hammer into the Gastrodon, which also picks up the KO, giving us our first game of the entire series. And yeah, it also really showcased the power of Surfetch'd once it gets going. Obviously, maybe not the most competitive game, but it is a start. And so we do go ahead and find our second opponent, Moises, I believe is how you would pronounce that, maybe not. And this one really looks like an in-game team, but you still gotta respect it, like Cinderace, Urshifu are still good Pokemon, Venusaur is still a good Pokemon, Lucario is, maybe a real Pokemon. Again, like if we get a Lucario, we're probably subbing the Surfetch'd out, it's just another very high base stat total Pokemon. It can do a lot of damage, can stack defense boost, has Justified, so there's a lot of potential ways that this can get very scary, and Urshifu and Cinderace lead is maybe one of the scariest ones. We do lead Inteleon because it outspeeds Cinderace and gives us speed control, and the original plan was to immediately max the Mamoswine to KO it, but the Urshifu does threaten, especially since today's Rapid Strike Urshifu, does threaten the Mamoswine a little too much, so instead I switch it out and go for a Hydro Pump. Thankfully, they don't Dynamax, and so this Hydro Pump, also thankfully we hit the Hydro Pump, and so the Hydro Pump is enough to KO. And they also just completely ignore the Mamoswine, instead going for a Brick Break into Inteleon, kind of reminding us that this is beginner rank. This Brick Break is a sign that this is probably an Urshifu without any TMs or anything, probably just using its level up move pool. And so Grassy Glide does pick it up. It doesn't Focus Sash like you would expect in VGC, and the Icy Wind goes into the Venusaur, single target, super effective. Does decent damage, but not going to be enough to KO on the second one. Does about 45% health, but it does mean that our Mamoswine will outspeed it. Not that it matters because they can't set up Sun anyways. They do go for a Grass Pledge and pick up the KO on Inteleon, boosted by the grassy terrain. Not that that really mattered. And the rest of this game, I did have some technical issues while recording it, but you're going to have to trust me that I brought in Mamoswine, Dynamaxed it, and the game did end pretty quickly after that. They didn't really have a ton of counterplay to a max Mamoswine once their fighting type and their Cinderace went down. And yeah, so that wraps up the second game of the series. Again, maybe not the most competitive games, but I promise you, these games are going to get a lot scarier really quickly now that we are in Beginner 2. So moving on, we place a Japanese player, and they have a real team. They have Dragapult, they have Landorus, they have Lapras. All three of those Pokemon are really scary for the team. We don't have great responses to Dragapult or Ghost types in general. That's why there was a Jigglypuff on the team. And we also don't have great responses to Lapras because it does hit our one water resist super effectively, and we don't have a second water resist. And so we have to position very carefully to actually be able to beat this team. They do lead Lapras and Landorus. I was hoping to just be able to max Rillaboom and immediately take out this Lapras, but because of the Intimidate, that really isn't going to be the case. Inteleon does put pressure on the Landorus, but they switch out the Landorus right away into a Slow King, I believe, or Slow Bro. I'm honestly really not sure. and the Japanese name does not make it easier to discern. And when we switch out the Rillaboom because we don't want to be intimidated and we don't want to immediately go down to a G-Max Resonance if this is something like a Life Orb Lapras. The Lapras does Dynamax, or rather Gigantamax, and we go for the Icy Wind, hoping to hit the Landorus. We are probably already faster than both of these Pokemon, but they do go for the G-Max Resonance into the Mamoswine in a second. There it is. Okay, G-Max Resonance into Mamoswine. Like I said, these animations just take so long. It kind of bugs me a little bit when I'm watching Pokemon. And so they do set up their Aurora Veil to really slow the game down. We have to slow the game down now so that we can stall out the Aurora Veil so that we can actually do big damage once we choose to Dynamax. Ideally, we don't lose all our Pokemon before that. But I make the switch out from Inteleon into Rillaboom, and I think this was a mistake. We do protect the Mamoswine, and they go for a Resonance, so we actually take very little from this. Our Mamoswine is going to be around, but they do Sludge Bomb what is now a Rillaboom. So a really safe play from them. And we take way more damage than we want to with our Rillaboom, because Rillaboom was my planned Dynamax for the game. And so now I have to protect the Rillaboom, or Garithmic. I love that name, by the way. That is the best possible name. I think from now on I have to use a French Rillaboom, just because of that nickname, or that French name. The high horsepower also just barely misses the KO onto that Slowking, or Slowbro. I think it's a Slowbro. I'm going to call it Slowbro. Galarian. No, it's a Slowking. It's a Slowking. It has Regenerator. Yeah, so the as you'll find out soon, it has Regenerator. The high horsepower just barely misses the KO, and the Flamethrower picks up the Mamoswine, so that's a little disappointing because we did need that Mamoswine to potentially deal with the Landorus. We do have an Inteleon to help deal with the Landorus, and the Lapras' Dynamax ends. However, it did get it didn't set up Rain for us, which is very smart. We didn't get the Inteleon boosted, and it did get the Veils up, and we switched in our Steelix, getting that Grassy Seed boost, so we would hopefully be able to KO the Lapras. And so one downside here is that because we took that Sludge Bomb, we do go down to recoil from this Wood Hammer. The Wood Hammer through Aurora Veil doesn't actually KO, especially since we are at -1. It might have KO'd. It looks like it would have been a roll to KO if we were at neutral. And so again, a very smart switch in there with that Landorus. And the Lapras, now boosted because it was a weakness policy Lapras, goes for a Freeze Dry into our Steelix with our relatively low special defense stat. Does over half damage, but the Body Press does get the knockout on the Lapras. So we are still in this game. We are down to 2 Pokemon. We are down to the Steelix and the Inteleon, but we do still have our Dynamax left. And the +1 defense Steelix is still going to be really scary for a lot of the potential Pokemon that they might have in back. However, they bring in their Slowking and immediately switch it out into Dragapult, and that is not one of the Pokemon this is scary into. So Steelix is kind of a sitting duck right now, whereas maybe one of our other Pokemon, like the Sirfetch'd, might have been more effective there. And so we do have to max the Inteleon, and I think this is a misplay. I was probably supposed to target down the Landorus, but instead I do Protect, and then I choose to target down the Dragapult, which used to be a Slowking with the Max Geyser, trying to pick up the knockout there. I thought, hey, we're going to always be able to target down this Landorus with another Max Geyser or an Icy Wind later. It's going to be very easy to endgame. We can also endgame it with Steelix. We need to target down the Pokemon that we can't endgame with Steelix. And so that was my mentality. But the Landorus gets a fly off, and now we really don't have anything to do this turn, right? Because the Landorus is going to fly, the Dragapult is going to Phantom Force. Thankfully, the Aurora Veils do run out, but the Inteleon can't actually hit anything at all this turn. And so we go for a Max Guard, just try to avoid the fly. They do go for the Phantom Force, and the Steelix also. All it can do is get a Body Press off onto the Landorus, which isn't actually very high impact. And so instead, I go for an Iron Defense, trying to get a little more damage off when I do get to use this attack. Again, however, this might have been a misplay. Maybe I was supposed to go for damage right away. I think this play was actually fine. And then moving on to the next turn, the Phantom Force does hit the Inteleon. We are in a bit of a tricky spot because we have to Hailstorm the Dragapult, otherwise the next Phantom Force is going to KO us. But it means that we also turn off the rain that we really needed to be able to KO the Slowking in back. And so that's kind of problematic. They also end up... We do KO the Dragapult though, so that's a start. And the Landorus does go for a Fly, which is pretty easy to predict. And so we go for another Iron Defense in response to that, getting all the way up to +5 defense. And so here's where I think I misplay as they switch in Slowking. I do have to protect to not get KO'd by this fly, but then I decide that, this Slowking probably going to click Taunt, probably going to click Trick Room, so I click Taunt into it. I really need to deny that, but I think I just needed Body Press to KO. I think that was my win con. Instead, I click Taunt, and the Flamethrower goes in. Now, here's the thing. The Steelix does live, but it gets burned. And it lives with just enough HP to live one turn of Hail Chip. We see all of their Pokemon getting hit by Hail, all of my Pokemon getting hit by Hail. The Steelix lives on one, but because of the burn, it does go down. And so we aren't going to have the chance to click Body Press into that Slowking, which might have been the difference. I should have done that last turn. Instead, I go for a Hydro Pump, trying to get the knockout while I have the chance, but it does very, very little. And the Rock Tomb does go and pick up the KO on Inteleon. So maybe not the best play on my part there, and I do end up losing that third game. And so we are 2-1, but that kind of goes to show you the power level of our team really isn't there yet. We faced a team with like a Landorus, a Dragapult, a Lapras, all very, very top tier Pokemon. And we only have like one top tier Pokemon along with Mamoswine that is getting kind of up there. But it does go to show you how far away our team is from taking on the top tier teams in VGC. And so, of course, our next game is once again into a team that looks very much like an in-game team. So we get a battle against Jonathan here. And so they go for a Abomasnow and Sigilif. And this is very similar to the last lead where Abomasnow, kind of scary for this Mamoswine Italian lead. And so I do go for the Icy Wind. I don't want the Sigilif to be able to get speed control up. That's kind of what it is known for doing, both Trick Room and Tailwind. And so I go for an Icy Wind, trying to let Mamoswine outspeed it no matter what it does. In hindsight, an Ice Shard would have been enough to KO it from here, but, we missed the Icicle Crash. And so they do get up the Tailwind, and they also go for an Aurora Veil with the Abomasnow, meaning that they have all of their setup that they could possibly ask for. They have their speed control, they have their screens. They are in a great spot. If they can't win from here, maybe their team is fundamentally flawed. And so we go for an Icy Wind, and we miss the Abomasnow. No big deal there. Again, maybe I was supposed to Ice Shard the Sigilif here, just get rid of it, but I decided that the Sigilif really isn't the threat. It doesn't actually pressure any of our Pokemon, and so instead, I go for the Icicle Crash into the Abomasnow, trying to get as much damage as possible. This would have been heavily punished by like a Giga Drain, so it would have gained all the HP back, but instead, we see the Air Slash go into the Inteleon and a Wood Hammer from the Abomasnow go into the Mamoswine, leaving us with 10 HP, so just barely surviving that, but the Abomasnow does go down to a Recoil, and so that's kind of one downside of screens, right, is that if you're using a Recoil move like Wood Hammer, you don't really stop yourself from taking full damage from that. Now here I switch out the Inteleon. I decide that if they have a Ferrothorn in back, I really need to be able to soak it to be able to win the game, and I go for an Ice Shard just to pick up that Sigilif while I have the chance. That also means that we go down to the Life Orb recoil, so the Espeon's Psychic type attack is always going into that Steelix slot that Inteleon would not have appreciated. And so instead, we do see the Psychic go into the Steelix, and it does do like 20%, but it does get the special defense drop, meaning the Steelix is going to be really vulnerable, especially given that their switch-in is Inteleon. So this Steelix is probably not going to be a very impactful Pokemon in this game, although it does get the defense boost from the Grassy Surge being set up by our Gorhythmic, the Rhythm Rillaboom, the Rhythm Monkey. Great, what a great name, and I can't get over that name. That's just I gotta use this in official competitions too now. And so they go ahead and max the Espeon. This is a little surprising. I think they might have maxed the Inteleon, but in hindsight, it does make sense. They want to set up Psychic Terrain so that our attacks do a little less damage, rather than trying to outright KO the Rillaboom. And we maxed the Rillaboom because what's really going to KO it from here? And the Max Mindstorm does like about 40% to the Rillaboom, so it is potentially going to knock out the next turn. And we go for, and also of course they turn off our Grassy Terrain, so our attacks are doing a lot less damage. My thought was that the Inteleon isn't really a threat. It's not going to be able to effectively pressure our Rillaboom, and so I needed to target down the Espeon as much as possible, and that's why I went for the G-Max Drum Solo into the Espeon, but this too does about 70% damage, so it may or may not be in range for our Inteleon, given that it is Dynamax. It does have a pretty good special defense stat off the top of my head. I don't actually know Espeon stats off the top of my head, but I do go for the Max Guard in case it doesn't. I think I need to hit 2 Hydro Pumps or a Hydro Pump and an Icy Wind to guarantee the KO. But they also go for a Max Guard. So both of our attacks go into Protect. They go for a Weather Ball, which actually is an Ice type move because of the Hail. So maybe that's the Hail focus of their team. And of course the Rillaboom does Protect, so it gets to live that. Also their Aurora Veil ends, so we see a Leftovers on Espeon. But the Hydro Pump is enough to pick it up, which is really important because I think our Rillaboom might have gone down if the Hydro Pump didn't KO. And so that might have also come from the last turn of Aurora Veil. I don't think we were KOing if the Aurora Veil was up. They go for a U-turn, which does obviously very little. Inteleon is not a attack-oriented Pokemon, and we do clean up the game from there. And so we get our 3rd win of the day. We are 3-1. That was probably a little closer than I wanted it to be against what looked like an in-game team, but it does mean that we are elevated to Beginner 3, which is, I believe, 1 rank away from Pokeball rank, and we do face someone who is rank 4, so maybe not. And that team looks real, too. Like, the Grimmsnarl, Metagross, Moltres core is a real core in VGC. You've obviously got Torkoal, Venusaur, which is very scary, and this is the game that I have to bring the Jigglypuff. Because we don't have a response to Torkoal. Remember what I said. The Torkoal is the reason that I have this Jigglypuff. We need the Friend Guard to weaken its attacks. We need to potentially sing it and put it to sleep. And we do actually see them lead the Torkoal along with the Grimmsnarl into our Jigglypuff and Mamoswine. Now, here, I decide that the Torkoal isn't actually the threat, or rather, the Torkoal could be trained in a lot of different ways. It could click Burning Jealousy, for example, and really punish us if it is a defensively oriented Torkoal and they set up Reflect. And so instead, I decide that I want to target down this Grimmsnarl. I go for a Helping Hand, try to guarantee that I KO it, and they do go for a Reflect, and I go for the Max Hailstorm, trying to turn off the sun. And that, of course, that does go into the Grimmsnarl. That does actually pick up the Knockout. And so the Grimmsnarl goes down, the Torkoal is still around, and it honestly is probably going to do a lot of damage, despite the fact the sun is off and Friend Guard is up. I'm still really scared of how much damage this attack is going to do, but it is an Inferno, which I have never seen before. Never seen that attack. But thankfully, it's not 100% accurate. I think it's a really powerful attack. It sounds like a really powerful attack, but it did miss. And they bring in the Metagross and they Dynamax it. And so here, I decide, okay, now we got to get rid of this Torkoal. I don't want to take an Inferno, whatever that is. And so I go for a Helping Hand, and they go for a Max Guard on Metagross, apparently not wanting to take a Max Quake. But joke's on them, the Max Quake is going in to this Torkoal, and it actually does pick up the KO outright. The Helping Hand offsets the Reflect, and it seems like it's not very defensively trained. And so that is enough to pick up the KO and move on to the next turn. They bring in their Venusaur as their last Pokemon, and this is also one of the Pokemon that I thought was scary. Maybe if they Dynamaxed it, it would be scarier. But I decide I got to Ally Switch. I don't want to let them get an attack off, maybe get a Sleep Powder off, and I go for a Hailstorm into the Venusaur, just trying to get rid of it, leave them with just the Metagross that I can like 1v1 with all of my Pokemon. But we do see that it is a Focus Sash Venusaur. This isn't the biggest deal. They will go down to the Hail Chip at the end of the turn, but they go for a Sleep Powder, and it misses the Mamoswine, which used to be the Jigglypuff, which means they went for a Sleep Powder into the Jigglypuff. They decided that was the threat. Now, thankfully, it did miss. The Steel Spike does go into the Jigglypuff, which used to be a Mamoswine, and that does pick it up. I don't know if that would have KO'd the Mamoswine. I imagine not with Friend Guard, and so maybe I shouldn't have Ally Switched. I should have just attacked or clicked Sing. But alas, here we are. The Venusaur does go down, and the Metagross has to deal with what is now an Inteleon. So 3v1, this should be pretty clean, right? We should be able to take it out. We saw the Mamoswine was faster, and the Metagross, however, is pretty bulky. It takes very little from this Hydro Pump. It takes very little from this high horsepower. It is down to about 40% health. The Grassy Terrain is up, so we're just going to keep recovering. Excuse me, the Grassy Terrain is not up, but we have a Rillaboom back, so we're just going to start recovering very soon. And a Weakness Policy is procced by the high horsepower, meaning that it is now even more powerful. They go for a Steel Spike, and so this game, so they KO the Mamoswine, and now I'm trying to figure out, can I win this game without having to risk missing a Hydro Pump? And maybe I played this incorrectly. Maybe I was just supposed to go for the Hydro Pump as Rillaboom comes in. And their Dynamax ends, and so they probably do go down to this Hydro Pump, but I really don't want to risk it. And so I go for a fake out and I go for a soak, and I decide that this Rillaboom is going to be the Pokemon that takes it out with a Grassy Glide, ignoring the fact that they are at +2 defense. And then I protect. I get the soak off again. I think this might have been a mistake. I think I was maybe just supposed to say Hydro Pump is going to do enough, especially given that after last turn I am actually back up to my Focus Sash. But so I do get the soak off onto the Metagross, and then they protect, and I get the soak off onto the Rillaboom to try to avoid taking a powerful Ice Punch. The rest of the game is just me trying to position, trying to get a powerful Grassy Glide off. The Ice Punch doesn't do very much. They would have been better suited going for Iron Head there, but they might have just missed the soak altogether. And, it just goes on for a few more turns, but at the end of the day, my two Pokemon are going to beat his one Metagross, regardless of what happens. The grass does go away. He does manage to stall the grassy terrain out, but I do go for a Wood Hammer instead, and that does pick up the now Water-type Metagross. And so our final game of the day ends with a win, and not only that, but we also get out of beginner rank into Pokeball rank to end day 1. And so there you have it. The first episode is in the books. We went 4-1, which is a pretty good record, all things considered. Sadly, it is not quite good enough to get a legendary Pokemon in the next episode, but hopefully we pick up at least one win in the next episode, and we'll get the legendary Pokemon in episode 3. And that's going to give our team a huge power boost that we will need as we move on to like Great Ball rank and beyond. We obviously did see that we lost to the one team that looked like a real VGC team, and we beat all the other teams, so that's pretty good. And honestly, our pool of Pokemon, not bad. Like, Rillaboom, obviously really good. We saw Mamoswine put it in work. Even, like, Jigglypuff wasn't that bad as a like, weird pick to counter Spectre that we didn't face. So, I'm pretty happy with how we played and how our team is looking so far. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can pick up next episode to make our team even more powerful as we move up these ranks. So that's all for me today. I hope you enjoyed this series. Make sure to give it a like. Again, 500 likes on this video, and I will bring our Wonder Trade only team to Players Cup 5 or the first regional of the year. I'm really excited for this. Thank you for watching, and until next time, we'll see you all later.